I'll call to order the June meeting of the Alexandria Transit Company Board of Directors. Thank you all for being here. This is our final meeting before our summer recess. I'll ask our secretary if she'll go ahead and call.
Chair Kaplan.
Here.
Vice Chair Kleist. Arish Gudger.
Here.
Matt Harris.
Present.
Praveen Patel.
Here.
Jesse O'Connell.
Here.
Hillary Orr.
Here.
Kirsten Phelps.
Here.
Kendall Taylor.
Here.
Ajaysha Thomas. President. Arthur Wicks.
Here.
Chair Kaplan, you have a quorum. Following is absent, Steve Kleist.
And Steve is traveling for work, has advised us he'll be available around 6:30 Eastern time. And so we'll try to get on the Zoom then if we're still going. All right, so our first order of business tonight is a public hearing on the Alexandria Transit Company proposed budget. But before we dive into that, I want to just follow up on our desserts, which many of you have already helped yourselves to. I'm glad, because that must mean that they're tempting. So we had a contest last month, as many of you know, to decide who was sort of the WMATA superstar based on smart trip card usage. And I cajoled some of you with threats to withhold dessert to participate, and I appreciate even one person who was in the bottom, I think, one night. Because you were in the bottom, what, 1% of riders?
I didn't participate just because I don't have a.
Oh, you,
usual
somebody
card.
had submitted a card in which they said they were the bottom 1%. I think that they hadn't used, but I appreciate all of your participation and a lot of staff participation as well. And so we had a winner, which was Brent Reuter, who our director of training, who I did not know was such a transit aficionado. We haven't run into each other on the train or the bus. And Edward, who was second place, beat me. And so, but I asked Brent what dessert he wanted from a choice, and so he picked these banana blondies that have a lot of chocolate chips in them. And so that's the dessert that we have. And because I was very impressed that two people beat my score, each of you get a little bit to take home with you.
All right, there we go. There we go.
And it's healthy because it's fruit.
Thank you. So hopefully you enjoy it, but we're never going to do this contest again because many of you told me that just some of the difficulties of having multiple smart trip cards, and that really wasn't fair. Plus the dash doesn't count, which I know then we'd all be in the top tier if we were able to count our dash rides. But thank you for the spirit of participating, and just a way to say thank you for a very good year, and hope that you enjoy our summer breaks. Well, oh, you didn't see quite a bit of them, but there's more left. I hope all in the audience who would like to help themselves, please do so. I have actually a couple more that are in my box that I bought them in, so I'll put the rest of those out if they go. But please help yourself throughout the meeting. All right, so we have a budget public hearing tonight. And I had talked with staff about, because we're approving the budget tonight, and we want to get public input from anyone who's here who wishes to be heard on that. But next year, we're also going to try to figure out how we can do this a little earlier to make sure that we're able then to take that feedback, consider the council process and any adjustments that are made to our budget, but allow time for us to be able to react to that. But tonight, our public hearing is the same night we're adopting the budget. So we will recognize speakers, first those who registered in advance, and then we'll recognize anyone in the room and online who would like to be heard. If you're online and did not register and would like to be heard, please use the raise hand feature so our staff will know when the appropriate time comes to recognize you. And I'll remind you that we have a public participation policy that governs all of our public discourse in our hearings, and so that will apply tonight as well. Comments are limited to 3 minutes. We're going to listen. We're not going to react. We're going to follow up later with any questions or concerns. Personnel matters are not appropriate for board meetings. They need to be taken up with the Dash administration. And we, of course, ask for civility and respect for any divergent views that others possess. We ask that comments be addressed to us, the board, rather than the audience. And as I mentioned, we'll take pre-registered speakers first, and anyone who was wishing to speak during general public comment, we merge that into the public hearing. So we'll take that comment as well. So I'll ask the secretary if anyone has pre-registered for tonight's hearing.
Bob Gronenberg.
Floor is yours.
I have a general comment, not a budget comment.
Okay, absolutely. Please.
Good evening, everybody. I think it goes without saying that we can all applaud Dash for their commitment to serve transit-dependent communities. However, if the goal is also to get cars off the road, I suggest there be outreach to larger populations. That is the discretionary travelers, people like me, or more correctly, people like my neighbors who don't know how to ride the bus, who won't ride the bus, who look at me like I'm some kind of a fool for riding the bus. They have all kinds of excuses. Primarily, they don't know where the bus is going. They want to go to Shirlington, the bus says Potomac Yard. They want to go to Bradley, the bus says Mark Center. They say, I don't want to get on that bus. I don't know where I'll end up, how I'll ever get. This is what we deal with every day. Now, how do you reach those people who are not subscribed to the YouTube channel, who don't get the city newsletters and so forth? How do you reach those people to get them interested in public transit? In my opinion, the best approach is direct mail. I get all the time, I get theaters ads, they do it, the theaters, the political candidates do it. And
You didn't bring a Jesse O'Connell.
pardon me,
You didn't bring a Jesse O'Connell for council. ad.
hold on.
Oh,
I do like the air conditioning one.
I get air conditioning ads, I even get door hangers, and oops, there's Jesse. How did that one get in there? Anyway, I get those, and because they're in my hand, I have to do something with them, so I look at them. I'm more likely to look at these than I am to stuff that appears on the web. What should we put on, if we do direct mail, what should we put on them? In my opinion, we should tailor them to each community, and we should consider putting on spider maps. This is a spider map of Ealing Broadway, which is a suburb in West London. And it has a dual scale. In the center of the map is a detail of the area, the commercial area around Ealing Broadway Station. All the streets, all the bus stops are indicated here. Emanating from the center area on a different scale is
30 seconds remaining.
the routes go. Shows very clearly. Now, if we had one like this for Park Fairfax, or Cameron Station, or North Old Town, or wherever, it might interest some people. They know where they could go because they had a map like this. If you mark this as plaintiff's exhibit. So, in summary, I'm not a cartographer, but
Your time is up. Please finish your
I'll give
comments.
you 30 seconds because I interrupted you.
Thank you very much. I'm not a cartographer, but I've been happy to help in the preparation of material like this, particularly spider maps are my favorite, to get people interested in know where the buses go and ride the buses. Discretionary travelers like me. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Bob.
Thank you.
Thank you. And Bob, I don't know if you've met our new marketing director, Noah Olivares, who's
Yes.
seated in the row behind you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would love for the two of you to have an opportunity to connect so that, because I think you raised some really good suggestions, and I think something that our team needs to look at in terms of potential of looking at some of the older technology like mail and being able to do outreach. So I hope that we can facilitate a conversation with the two of you, but thank you very much for
Thank
tonight. Any other pre-registered speakers?
That's
So we'll ask, is anyone in the room wish to be heard either on budget public hearing or general comment? If not, we'll pause to see if there are any hands that are raised. Last chance for those online, if you want to participate in tonight's hearing.
The names look all to me like staff, so I think you've got it.
Is there a motion to close the public hearing? So moved by Matt, is there a second?
second.
Jason, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. Our next order of business is approval of the meeting minutes from May 8th that appeared in the packet. Are there any revisions to the minutes as they were submitted? If not, is there a motion to adopt the minutes? Motion moved by Art, second. Second, Arish, I'm sorry. All in favor? Aye.
Hi,
Any abstentions on this?
me.
Oh, Hillary. Okay. We'll move now into the chair's report. So just a few items. One is you may have noticed in the meeting packet that there's a resolution we'll be voting on a little later in the meeting related to a grant for the EPA. And you may have noticed that it said Matt Harris, acting chair, approving that. For those who are new to the board, I am as an employee of the federal government in the executive branch. I have certain ethics restrictions, whereas I cannot represent an organization before an agency of the federal government. And so when we vote on any grants like our FDA grant, and this is another grant program, I recuse from that vote and participation, that discussion, just so that there's not any conflict that can be raised later on. And so Steve, if were he here, would actually have the same conflict, because Steve is also a federal government executive branch employee. So the last time this came up, the board took action to actually ask Matt to preside over that portion of the meeting. So I will step away from the table when we get to that, and Steve will as well if he's joined us.
I have no ethics.
Just kind of a reality of this region. We just, of course, have a large population of the federal government employees that have to pay attention to ethics. The second is, well, just certain specific government ethics. And, not implying that yes, you are, but there are just some restrictions on what we do. So appreciate your understanding of that. The next I wanted to mention is, and Bob actually was where I thought you were going to go in this direction with your lanyard for Better Bus for WMATA. This is the WMATA redesign of their entire network, which also will include some implications for Alexandria. The Coalition for Smarter Growth had a webinar yesterday that I listened to that went into some of the details about changes overall in the region and some of the tools that they're providing in order to be able to review that. Alexandria doesn't have as many changes as other parts of the region because WMATA folded in a lot of their changes to our new Dash network redesign a few years ago, but there are public comments that are being accepted through July 15th. And so I would encourage folks to go to view that website. Bob, did you go to the outreach that was today? Is that in Arlington?
And I protested the abandoning all service in Park Fairfax.
So that,
all Metro bus service is being pulled out of Park Fairfax.
okay.
In the proposal for next summer.
So there are implications for Alexandria that we may want to dig into. Were you going to say something? Okay. We had Al Himes here, who is one of the WMATA bus plan, actually used to be the director of planning for Dash, and now as a senior bus planner at WMATA, had come to explain kind of the earlier version of the network, which was kind of the visionary, if we could do everything we wanted to in the region, what would it look like? Now this is the constrained version of the network, similar to what we went through with our redesign. I think it would be helpful if we had him back in the fall in order to, even though the official public comment will have ended, WMATA is not looking to do any of these changes until the following year. So the budget year that would start in July of 25. So there's still time, I think, to weigh in on some of those if we want to, and to help get word out within Alexandria. So I know Martin's not with us tonight. So because I was going to ask, because I know that the planning team at Dash has been monitoring these calls regionally. I was going to ask Martin if there were any areas of concern that kind of Dash had. It sounded like, Josh, in our conversation that Dash team was comfortable with kind of what direction WMATA was going, and it's consistent with kind of what was discussed previously, but I think it would be helpful to have Metro come back in the fall to, and of course, Laura, I know your team is probably monitoring this as well.
Metro might actually be coming to the Transportation Commission this month.
Oh, okay.
I think it's this month. I can double check to talk about the Better Bus Network.
Okay.
So that's something that is, I believe they post the video online.
Okay, so we can watch the video. Do you have the sense that, Bob has raised some changes certainly for Alexandria neighborhoods? Do you have a sense that there are significant changes or neighborhoods we should be targeting to kind of talk about these things?
I don't have the proposals memorized. I know certain residents from certain areas have come forward about the changes. There's a couple, I believe that a couple routes that were being cut back. I think one on Taney.
Okay.
That's one I raised with Al last time we was here, the 8W.
That's
With the topography, and a lot of kids get on that bus.
Yeah.
They're going to Francis Hammond to go to school, and even though it's low ridership, it needs to be considered, especially if there's less to Park Fairfax as well, and we just had a budget issue where the city council had to restate the line, so.
Yeah, that's one I've heard the most about.
So. It's in the presentation, so.
Okay. Well, maybe it would make sense if we can talk about trying to get WMATA to come here in the fall as well. And we may know more then, certainly that they'll be able to react at least to the comments that they've received through July. So that's something Josh, that we can work on as we plan for the fall. And then the third piece of business I mentioned this last month, Lonnie Rich, our general counsel, is reaching kind of his retirement. He's kind of doing it on kind of a phased approach. But I was able to have a phone conversation with him just to get some more information kind of about way forward. And Lonnie said he'd like to kind of wrap up representation of us by the end of the year, but it's not it's not crucial. He's not closing he's not stopping practicing at the end of the year. So, you know, we have some flexibility there, but that's kind of what he would like. You know, I asked Lonnie sort of what was important for general counsel. He's been our general counsel for about 6 years. And so Lonnie said that, you know, a lot of what he deals with is open meetings, freedom of information, the kind of unique relationship the ATC has as a nonprofit corporation owned by the city, kind of because we're a little bit of, we're a hybrid. We're kind of a bunch of different things, and sort of understanding how that fits. And then, you know, reviewing bylaws, and a lot of it is also just kind of interpreting contracts for the ATC. I think that is fair. So I had talked with Matt because Matt had sat on the committee that had actually appointed Lonnie with Carrie Donnelly, when he was on the board, and just to get a sense of kind of that process and sort of what would make sense in terms of going forward. Because Lonnie had recommended a partner within his firm who could step in if we were interested. And talking with Matt had said, you know, he thinks that we probably should have just kind of a broader search to start off with. So I wanted to kind of bring that to all of you. And I know some of you have, you know, law degrees and experience in practicing law. Some like me do not, but you know, we can put together a committee that can start over the summer to look at basically what we need in a firm and to consider proposals. I had asked Josh to kind of think about in terms of involvement last time, how we had identified firms, because we had looked at firms other than just Lonnie's, and sort of was that a list that, because I'd asked about an RFP, it sounded like we didn't do that last time, but somehow we kind of came up with a list. I don't know if that was just sort of looking at firms that have corporate practices within Alexandria, or if you recall kind of how that had.
Well, you know, Carrie did a lot of work on that. I think Matt, you might have been involved too. I think we've developed a short list based off of local firms that had the qualifying capabilities that we needed for this type of public service work. And Lonnie ended up being recommended, because Lonnie had previously worked with city council, I think.
He was on
City council. And so that was helpful. I would imagine it would not be difficult, especially considering we've got folks in the room here who can also help point us in the right direction for staff to develop a short list that the committee could then work through. We're happy to do that. It's, I've not typically seen like a formal RFP document process for a service like legal counsel. We could put like a one pager together that we could send out to firms and say, this is the type of work we're looking for. But you as the board have the right to hire and terminate legal counsel at any time for any reason. Based on the needs that you identify and what skill set is important to you in that perspective and representing the organization.
So in terms of interest in going forward, so we could either look at the resource within Lonnie's firm that was recommended to us, or we could look more broadly and of course include that individual if they would like to throw their hat into the ring. So what those are kind of the two directions that we can go in.
So,
Second.
I mean, I recommend we consider that lawyer, but also at least get 2 other lawyers for consideration for a number of reasons. I first think it's better that we've, you know, not just gotten Lonnie's anointed successor, although he's done a great job. I don't necessarily know that that person's qualified for the job as much as Lonnie is. And I think in this area, we can find a lawyer that's more of a specialist, dime a dozen. Probably just throw a flag out and get 10. So that'd be my preference. And, you know, I'm happy to sit on the committee.
Do we have a sense of what this attorney's background is? Like what does he specialize in versus what Lonnie does?
Well, it's
Or is it the same thing?
but, she,
Oh, sorry.
yeah, she is general counsel for the Chamber of Commerce in Alexandria, but she mostly focuses on domestic relations. So, you know, ideally, I think we have someone who knows government, you know, regulations, how to file for grants, just to overlook general contracts, maybe a little bit of personnel we've used Lonnie for, litigation. Isn't he still at, oh, wow, that'd be a great choice. I don't know, we can pay him enough. I mean, literally, but, you know, and it only consists of about 6 or so hours a month, right?
It really is very sporadic based on what we're doing, what we've got going on. Lonnie helps us on the staff level with sort of random one-off things. We, of course, Defense Counsel is always assigned for us through our insurance carriers. We have many layers of that for various different litigation that we might face related to that. So
So,
it's more general
so,
advice.
so Jesse, noted that, Jim Banks, the former city attorney for Alexandria, is no longer with SHRM. I think that's where it might. I mean, he'd be great. Is he retired
I don't
or
know,
half?
I don't know, I
You
just heard he
know,
wasn't sure.
there are many good people I can think of off the top of my head, like that caliber, someone with details on municipal law, a little bit of transit would be good. HR, obviously, he's fantastic on. And knows the workings of the city.
And one thing that Lonnie had emphasized is that, there are attorneys who have, and those who practice law probably have different approaches to solving problems. There are some who are very litigious on things and versus others who are more collaborating. Lonnie indicated, we would certainly not want someone who is looking to do a lot of litigation. That's just not kind of the business that we thankfully that we're in with the type of general counsel representation that we would need. But I think just to kind of get a group together who wants to kind of look at this over the summer. So I've got Matt wanting to volunteer. Others, you don't have to be, our lawyers certainly are welcome to participate. You don't have to be an attorney to be on the committee, but.
I mean, I'd almost ask like Hillary, or if you or Jan know, not to be honest, but if you all like know lawyers who maybe not represent interests against the city, but people who you guys
Yeah.
may think you want to cross.
Yeah, I can ask.
Yeah, I think city attorney's office actually also gave us some recommendations last time, so we.
That's right, that's right. I think that was a great spread, because we did get someone very qualified.
Okay, and I'm gonna put myself on the committee as well, just because on behalf of the board, the staff works with the attorney most frequently, but when there's a board question, usually I'm the one who has to talk with them, so I'd like to have some input as well, so. I think a 3-person committee, unless, and of course, anyone else wants to join in. So our goal will be,
Sorry, is that a public
meeting? Yeah, we would be triggered with that, and we can work around the notice for that. And I've also asked that the staff have input as well, because they work, at least I know Josh is gonna be involved in any interviews that we do with attorneys that we're considering. So. All right. I think that's all I have for the chair's report, so we'll go to the team's report.
Mr. Chair, might I jump in front of Hillary if she doesn't
Yeah.
mind for a moment? I want to recognize someone here tonight that we didn't really have time to plan for, but a little background. I literally just landed like 45 minutes ago after an 8-hour struggle getting back from Florida, where I attended the Community Transportation Association of America's national conference. And that is a conference that is focused on training and various seminars and sessions. Myself, Ray, and Martin all were presenters at that conference about various topics. On my way back, I didn't expect to experience the Bright Line, but it was a very cool train in my endeavors to make it in time for this meeting. But I wanted before they do the expo and the conference, they do a rodeo, and the rodeo historically has been targeted specifically towards rural and small bus systems. This year, though, for the first time ever, they added the 35-foot bus category, which they had never had before, and that was previously held with the other national rodeo under APTA, the American Public Transportation Association, who dropped it, and they were only doing 40-foot buses. So we got a call a couple weeks before the conference saying, "Did you know we have that category?" And I said, "No, but that's great. We happen to have someone here who has won our local rodeo and needed to go to a national competition, and that is Linnell Glover, who's sitting back there in the yellow." Linnell quickly responded to us and was willing to go down and represent Dash and Virginia in the first such competition. My understanding is it wasn't actually a 35-foot bus. It was like a 30-foot bus. It was a 29-foot bus. Well, Linnell won.
All right.
He won the national. He has a trophy I'd like to ask him to come up and show us. He's the first ever winner of this competition. And if the board will be willing to stand up and take a picture with Linnell, for Camilla, we'll make some space.
We want to know, Lynn, can you do donuts in a bus? Is that like, can you?
I can't, but I can't live in that.
I haven't even been able to congratulate you. He was already gone by the time I got there, so I hadn't even seen him yet. It's the first time I've seen him, but. Well, you stand in the middle and we'll let everybody huddle around here.
This way.
Right, that's exactly, okay. Does that work? It's all right here. We have a pretty tall building. Yeah. Well, it is a tall board. Yeah. Jason, there's room over here.
There's not space. We need a bigger space. Chambers.
I need bleachers, that's what's up. I got a space right here. That's right. I got other boards here.
So congrats.
Yeah, I don't know what system it was. I it's some system in Florida.
They wind up using it, put it out for you. Broke down. See, it didn't matter other way.
It's not easier. It's like going from a heavy baseball bat to a lighter
It
baseball
just
bat.
tightened up the course, that's all.
Oh, I see.
How did it like, perform compared to the dash bus?
Well, those wasn't down, they were electric steering, wheel, right? Electric steering was real easy.
So you guys.
So you almost can lose control. But-
Congrats.
Yeah, that's cool.
That's awesome.
Please don't picture. That's right, yeah, that's right. Uniform city picture performing their
Yeah,
duties.
I'm not gonna make him sit through this meeting, so that's why I interrupted.
All right.
Justin will yell at me.
That is very fair. That's a fair interruption.
The board members and executive director of the association said, not only is Linnell, did he win, but he's the first ever winner, so your name will always be associated with that.
Wow.
Name it after you.
Linnell, did you win the statewide rodeo? I feel like we recognized you years ago.
Yeah, you did.
That's,
It was, 2 years ago.
Yeah, and then because of COVID, the international kept getting canceled, and so you were supposed to represent Virginia at one point, but you weren't able to go.
Where do they host the international?
Well,
In most all of
thanks, everyone.
it. All right, take care. Thank you.
Thank you.
Now, does that trophy go at Dash or does it go in his house? Like, how does that?
Well, that's his own.
Or
Yeah,
award.
That's his. Now, we do have a trophy case, so if he loans it to Dash, we'll certainly make sure we make space for it. We have quite a few. Yeah, we've got quite a few.
Come on.
I'm sorry, go ahead. I'll turn it back over to you.
Okay, my turn. You
Yeah.
done? Okay, so I did just confirm, so the WMATA Better Bus Network redesign is going to be on June 20th. That's our Transportation Commission meeting this month. It got moved from its normal Wednesday day. It's in sister cities here, and it's the first item on the agenda, so starting at 7. So if anybody's interested in hearing about that, those meetings are broadcast, although it's in sister city, so I hope it'll be broadcast. Usually it's a lot easier doing it from this room. Okay. So I wanted to update you all on a few items. First is the WMATA budget, which we like to touch on every month. And I apologize for not making the meeting last month. But right after our meeting last month, the Virginia Assembly passed their state budget. And so that actually included $60 million in FY 25 and 80 million in FY 26 in additional state aid for WMATA. This year we had kind of suspended the 3% operating cap. So the subsidy from Alexandria went up pretty substantially to about 74. I want to say it's about 74 million, but the state kicked in an extra 10. So that brought us down to about 65 million for our WMATA subsidy this year. So that 10 million is very helpful from the state. It's better than nothing. The next item I wanted to update you on is the King Bradley Safety and Mobility Enhancements Project, which I believe you all talked about a little bit last month. I'm not sure if Chris gave a presentation on it, right? But I do have a letter from this one from the board already, but after the board meeting, staff presented a preferred alternative to the community on May 16th. And it is for the option that has a transit only lane in front of the King and Bradley Shopping Center. So it was called option 2. This will be going to the Traffic and Parking Board on June 24th for their consideration at a public hearing of kind of converting this roadway to one way with a transit only lane. And this is, I think we calculated it's about, I want to say 1,300 interactions a day in this area with transit. So obviously it's a priority area, and so showing what's on the slide here, it does remain two-way in front of the Safeway, and then it becomes one way to the west and gets a bus only lane, and the eastbound buses actually shift into the King Street lanes and then are able to kind of pull out of the way. So you get much better transit flow. You don't have transit stop behind vehicles stop behind transit, get your own lane. And this is one of the corridors we had, I think, buses every three to 4 minutes on this corridor.
Well, do you anticipate needing like testimony from us in support of it? I don't know what your sense of the community is, if their traffic parking board should hear from.
Typically, the Traffic and Parking Board, we hear from the people that do not support items, with the exception of last month where everybody came out that did support. who they went against staff's recommendation to recommend a one-way conversion on a different street. I think any transit support for this is incredibly helpful. I think we've reached out, I think Martin was going to reach out to the DAC on this project. You know, I anytime that people support some of the recommendation that aligns with the goals of the organization and with what staff is saying, it's really helpful to have them come out and speak. There's also virtual options, because, you know, typically when we recommend something that people agree with, they don't come out and speak because they're like, oh, that's the recommendation. So they don't take the time to support it. So I do think that would be helpful, but I also have a letter from you all.
Okay, I mean, so we would just need as a board to authorize permission for testimony on behalf of it, which I 24th, you said?
It's the 24th.
Okay,
Mhm.
yeah, I could. So we would just need a motion, and then I would just ask for some help from staff just to put together the talking points for that. So is there a motion to authorize testimony for the traffic and parking board? So moved. Matt, second. Second, Reach. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Yeah, just a little discussion. So, who's gonna draft the talking points? Staff?
I would look for help from staff, and if Martin's already been in touch with the DAC, then, you know, and I think from the letter too that we already sent a letter in support of this project. I think we'll be able to-
Okay, so sort of mimic that old letter.
Yes, that would be,
Okay, thank you. That's all.
Okay, so we had, I want to make sure, because I think we may have some abstentions on this, so, let's just do the vote again. So all in favor, aye?
Aye.
Okay, any opposed, any abstentions?
Aye.
1, 2, 3. Okay.
Okay.
Are you on the fence about that?
Well, no, it's my feeling, but
That's good.
The boss.
So there are lots of ways to.
I'm sorry, do we need clarity on the,
We need clarity on who's abstaining, so.
Hillary,
I can't
Kirsten,
make it.
Ajaycia,
Yeah.
and Kendall? I don't know, did Kendall vote on this item?
What's the city staff?
She may have stepped away. So.
Just like to be on camera.
No, I'm here. I was just having trouble with my screen. Sorry.
Turner Browns.
How did you vote on this item, Kendall?
I was a yay.
Yay, okay, thank you. All right. Thank you, Hillary.
The next project I wanted to talk about is the South Pickett Street corridor improvements. This is another one I've tried to bring you all along with this project. This is a project looking at South Pickett Street. So in front of Home Depot is, people can relate to this, is a a pretty high-speed roadway. There's very few crossings, for people that are walking, and there are, currently bus routes here. And, staff is looking to bring this to the Traffic and Parking Board, I believe in July, but since this is the last meeting that we have as a board, before then, I wanted to bring this one forward. Just, I believe there's a draft letter in the packet, regarding this project. I'm happy to answer any questions. I didn't have any visuals for this one. I apologize. But this is a project where the recommendation shows kind of removal of a travel lane, bike lanes, pedestrian islands, bump outs for transit stops, along the corridor.
I have one question. Well, first, I think it's a great idea. Anytime I have to go to Home Depot on transit, it's dicey. Getting back across the street to catch the bus. So it's something that is very jarring, especially for people who have to live out there and who deal with that as their reality regularly. It's a challenging corridor. So I think this is going to be really, really helpful. I think there was a note on South Pickett Street about like the bus boarding islands then being removed subsequently once the transit vision plan is fully implemented. I didn't understand kind of why they were temporary, because I thought we were still going to serve Pickett, or did I misunderstand that?
I thought that the 2030 plan did not have transit on South Pickett. Because of the kind of the way we build these projects, we would look to first do these temporary islands, which is something that we're looking at to install all over the city. It's often very time consuming and costly to do the full design and construction of the bus bulbs. So we have found a couple more temporary ones that we can get out quickly so that there is a boarding island. If the routes were to remain here, it's certainly something in the future we could look at funding for full construction of permanent islands.
I didn't realize that the bus would serve Pickett.
Is that,
Okay.
if you recall, 2030?
Off the top of my head.
I'm going to trust that staff had that.
Okay, no, I believe it.
But
It had
could be wrong.
surprised me when I saw it.
Or we might have called them temporary because they are the more modular ones. And as part of this project, we're not recommending building out that curb line right now.
I've seen some of those, throughout the region. I think DC's put
DC
quite a
has.
few in that. I guess you call them temporary, but they're pretty long. They can be there for a long time.
Yeah, and there's modular ones that work really well with the bike lanes as well. Mhm.
Do you want to take all the letters as a group and we go through them, and unless, and I don't know if anyone's on traffic and parking, may need to separate. Do we need to vote individually on these, Kristen?
I can either abstain from them all, or we need to vote for them individually.
What's your preference? Because I think some of them are going to council, some are going to traffic.
I can just make it easy and abstain from them all.
Are you sure?
Yeah, that's fine.
Did you want to do these at the end, the letters at the end, or?
Yeah,
as
so
we go?
we'll vote them as a block.
Okay. Great. Okay. More projects. We have so many projects. This is what happens when we start all of our projects and the engagement in the fall, and then we get to this time of year and they're all coming forward, which is very exciting. The next project is the Eisenhower Avenue Transportation Study, and this is a project we started studying with VDOT in the fall, looking at kind of what are the concerns. Eisenhower was on their radar as a roadway in need of safety improvements. That's how we got the kind of, it's not actually a grant. We never accept the funding from them, but they do this study in conjunction with the city. So a number of recommendations have come out of that. We did look at the entire Eisenhower corridor, but the focus right now is more on the western end of the corridor, looking at kind of the intersections of Van Dorn and Eisenhower and the loop that people take around Metro Road. I do think, Josh, do we have a graphic in this one? We actually met with this community last night on this project. This is another one going to the Traffic and Parking Board in July. But what we are looking at doing with this project is actually relocating the left turns from Van Dorn and Eisenhower at that intersection and having people utilize Metro Road. Metro Road, the loop it's a 5-lane road. It's at peak, it's about 10% capacity. So even with all the additional lefts, you get to only 20% capacity. And the congestion improvements that we see on Eisenhower and Van Dorn are greater than we see with the construction of the multimodal bridge. So this is a really good use of kind of thinking about how we use the infrastructure that we already have, rather than necessarily needing to build new and expensive infrastructure. So this is a really exciting project. And along with that, by relocating the left turns at that intersection of Van Dorn and Eisenhower, you're able to get in additional pedestrian islands, more crosswalks, and actually take some of the space on Eisenhower Avenue to have a kind of continuous cycle track and sidewalk. And then with the project, we would also put a sidewalk on the south side of Eisenhower to help people get to the metro station. So it's a exciting, good project. We're looking at additional improvements from kind of Metro Road to the east, and we kind of splitting Eisenhower into sections. Probably not doing too much in the far east bit of the corridor, but we will look at different design alternatives, and we've been talking to the community about various alternatives for kind of, do we, where can we remove travel lanes? Do we put in parking lanes? Is our transit lane something we want to think about? That's what the plan calls for in the future, but right now there's not really a need for a full dedicated transit lane. So how might we use that space differently? And particularly the small area plan has the developments on the north putting in kind of a separated bicycle facility, separated sidewalks. But as they're coming in, which some are under construction, you're kind of seeing this piecemeal construction along Eisenhower. So we're looking at how do you put in something that's a little more temporary until all those developments come in, so you have a continuous path. You don't have people riding a bike on a street and then hopping up to the cycle track for a couple of blocks and going back down on the street. So until those get constructed, we probably would look at some kind of north side cycle track, and then you have another lane to play with. So we've been talking to the businesses about, should that be parking? Should that be a travel lane? What does that look like? And that's something that we'll figure out in the coming months. But right now the focus is on kind of the far western portion of the corridor. This also is really helpful for buses that get stuck in the congestion in this area. I think it saves about 2 minutes of travel time. So these are some of that cross section I'm talking about, where we have the north side cycle track, and then you have a little bit of room to play with the rest of the corridor, because it's so wide right now.
And so this is probably potentially, depending on what they decide, actually might have parking.
We could add
Yeah.
parking. Mhm. Absolutely. Yep. Okay. And then the last project on here, you guys are probably tired of me talking about the Duke Street Transitway. This is hopefully the last nudge for a little bit. We went to the Traffic and Parking Board in May to talk about the section near Duke Street, West Taylor Run. The board voted to kind of convert that service road to one way, put it in a cycle track, and approve the traffic signal that we would put in to access Telegraph Road. In June, we are going back to the Traffic and Parking Board with the other 3 components that council asked us to keep looking at, which is the service road between West Taylor Run and Cambridge, and the intersection of Cambridge Road and Duke Street, and then looking at what we would do kind of with segment 2B. That was always a question we were thinking about. Should we try and build one eastbound dedicated transit lane now, or do we wait till redevelopment of Alexandria Commons and the Duke Street Small Area Plan and try and get a really good dedicated facility with east-west dedicated lanes at one time? And so, yeah, put in a couple graphics here. The proposal for the service road is to convert it to one-way eastbound with a dedicated space for people biking and scooting on the north side, and that enables us to redesign the intersection of Cambridge Road to make it much safer and make it function much better. Going down, saving about almost like 2.5 minutes of delay for people at that intersection with the redesign, and reducing conflict points for people walking, biking, and driving in this area. So we're really excited about this concept. So that'll be going to the Traffic and Parking Board. And then Josh, I think the next slide shows, because we are proposing to hold off on designing the one dedicated lane on 2B and wait for full redevelopment in that area, we did look at ways to make transit better. And so we are looking at, instead of the eastbound bus hopping into its own lane here, at least giving it a queue jump so it can get out ahead of traffic at this area. And then we're also looking at other improvements, at Quaker Lane and Duke Street. As most of you all probably know, this is a very congested area and it's one of our highest crash locations in the city too. So trying to figure out how we can make that safer for everybody that's using the roadway, but also make sure we're prioritizing buses on the corridor. So these are recommendations for June.
Yeah, and that's a corridor, that's an intersection where we deal with a lot of blocking at the box,
Mhm.
like excessive to the point where we end up getting stuck. Buses gonna wait because you can't move because of the block.
Yep.
So I put it aside for all three.
Thank you. Right, so we had letters of support. Some were to the Traffic and Parking Board and to council, and some were just to the Traffic and Parking Board, I believe.
So draft letters were in our packets. Are there any discussion on the letters or revisions, some questions for Hillary? If folks are okay with that, we can take them as a block. So is there a motion to approve the 3 letters? So I guess letters on 3 topics, because some of them have, as Hillary said, are showing the two bodies. Matt had moved them. Is there a second?
Second.
Harish, any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, any abstentions?
Same.
2 abstentions, Hillary and Kirsten. We allow time at all of our board meetings for others who serve on boards, commissions, or groups of anything that would be transit related or for the benefit of the group. Now would be the time.
Sure. On behalf of the Human Rights Commission, we all love the bus, the Pride buses. They look wonderful. You know, I staffed that table on that Saturday when I saw you guys, and it was kind of an intersection of the 2 boards and commissions I sit on. So great job. And the crosswalk looks great.
Okay, quick. So I'm on the board of Alexandria Little League, and this question keeps coming up from parents. Are we still looking at the notion of the sports loop bus? Is that still being debated between you guys and city staff? People keep asking if that's a real idea.
Yeah, we've had a couple of meetings with that
Okay.
group. The issue, as every issue, comes down to who's gonna pay for it.
Sure.
And the costs are pretty substantial.
Yeah, Dash has been working with city staff and some of the youth sports groups to sort of test the idea if we could run a kind of like loop that goes by sports fields and like helps drop athletes off in the evenings. And like Josh said, there's a bunch of implementation challenges, but I wasn't sure. But so it is still kind of being kicked around.
Yeah, I mean, I think the ball is kind of in their court right
Okay.
now to respond to us as far as the various scenarios and what the costs are associated with them. Not surprisingly, you know, the cost per hour is pretty high, and so that's a factor that there isn't anything in any budgets for it right now.
And this would be part of the year, so like what months, what is it, any sense of, like, it's like summer?
Yeah, I don't know off the top of my head exactly what the months are, but yeah, it's I mean, the volume of people that are needing to move, particularly kids that are trying to move between these fields is significant. So I think everybody loves the idea of figuring out a solution to it. No one quite knows how to pay for it. That's the issue.
Be great for Witterfield. That
Yeah.
traffic jam over there.
So how,
Thanks, Josh.
can I ask, how does that work? Is it, kids that need to get from one field to another, or is it just having better access to the fields and what ages? Is it something where if they're younger kids or parents are chaperoning or feel comfortable hopping on the bus?
There was discussion about there being a chaperone type person who would ride the shuttle. But it seemed to me like it was more about moving kids between fields and activities, less about getting them to the field. Certainly there are a number of options, obviously, to use Dash to get to the fields. They're not, in some cases, they're pretty challenging. You know, but there was an example over off of near Potomac Yard where there's fencing up or something, and there were challenges there, but anyway, that's the origin of the discussion, was to figure out how to facilitate kids moving between those fields because of the traffic volume of parents having to do that.
Mhm.
Cut down. But we're very, very receptive to it. It
Yeah.
just, I think the conversations went that far, and then the question remains how we would pay for it.
I feel like Hillary gave all the updates about from the traffic and parking board, so. Good.
I guess I will mention, when we're talking about other boards and commissions, we talked about this a little bit in the spring, the Transportation Commission seat. We don't have a Dash representative anymore because Murat, who had left us in the winter, was our representative, and so we had. I had a feeling in talking with the board that a lot of you are very busy or already serving on other boards and commissions, as do I. I'm on the Commission on Aging, and so it may be challenging right now to fill that seat, but it is something that I think long-term we should continue as anyone has time.
Is that seat is delineated as a Dash board member? We
Yes.
can't, so we can't
Yeah.
appoint, okay, and we don't even have the flexibility to appoint somebody from the Ridership Advisory
Well,
Committee?
because I mean, the language for that was written before the DAC existed, so I think it does say ATC board in the.
Yeah, we just have to look at I mean, it be as simple as I say, but code change. Code changes are not simple, but I don't think, I mean, we could certainly look at it. I'm trying to think of the time of year when they rethink their bylaws. I feel like it might be September, so I can flag that.
Okay.
I can flag that.
That's a good suggestion, because that does allow, it would certainly give a lot more flexibility, and certainly that group is very aware of kind of their members' interests, and having been to one of their meetings, I would say they've got some folks who are really plugged into the city process, so I like that.
Can you just share a little bit about, what is the purview of the committee? What's the kind of
You
expectation?
might have been
or
absent at
requirement,
the
or-
first meeting when after you all were seated, we had discussed that, so, but Hillary gave a great overview.
Of the Transportation Commission?
Yep.
Yeah, the Transportation Commission really looks at policy more so. So like if you think about the Traffic and Parking Board, they're taking action on specific changes, right? But the Transportation Commission, they're looking at policy in terms of like, they get a lot of updates like the Better Bus Network, but like they provide input on our budget process. They're kind of in charge of overseeing the Alexandria Mobility Plan, which is basically our transportation master plan. And so they had a large role in the development of that plan. And so we go to them and present to them on many of the topics that are in that plan and get their feedback. They also hear a lot of grant applications and provide feedback and letters of support on some of those projects. And then they also, this is happening at the next meeting, every 2 years, they prioritize a list of our unfunded projects. So anything that's been in an approved plan or adopted policy that has no funding attached to it, they kind of have their criteria, they vote and they rank those. And so if a grant opportunity comes up, that's in theory where staff goes to look at the list of what are the projects, which projects might meet this, the criteria for this particular grant, and that helps inform the projects we seek funding for, because it's now been prioritized. So that's one of their big roles.
Okay, like what, and they meet monthly or like
It's
what's the-
monthly, every third Wednesday of the month.
Okay,
It's the week after Dash.
I will say, and
that's right.
Steve, who may be joining us a little later, Steve Kleiss for many years was our representative on that group, and actually chaired the Transportation Commission for a while and was involved in a lot of initiatives that they were members of, like the scooter task force and motor coaches. So I mean, they touch a lot of different areas. So if Steve is able to get on, I may ask when he joins, just to talk about kind of the perspective of having served, if that's something you'd like to hear more about. And, you know,
I can reach out to him directly. I don't know if realistically, time-wise, it's gonna work for me, but I could at least learn more, so, yeah.
The commission's webpage has a couple of things that might be really useful if you're considering it. One is a list of the 10 responsibilities of the commission,
Mhm.
that are like formally defined, and then all the past agendas and minutes and stuff like
That's a great
that.
call,
So
yeah.
I used to chair the EPC that has a seat there. My interactions with the Transportation Commission is that like it's one of the best run and documented commissions.
They also have an annual work plan, which I don't know if that's called out specifically on there. It was recently approved. And so that shows you like we do our best to plan ahead and think about what's coming, but that kind of outlines all the types of things that they would hear, and we do a lot of written updates on projects, kind of like I do here, but in a little bit more depth for them.
Yeah, thanks for all that. Yep.
And I mean, in terms of time commitment, well, so you know, in terms of how often they meet, but I mean, like, don't, if you volunteer for, oh, I have to do this forever until I get off the board, that's certainly not the case. I mean, 2 years would be ideal just because, you know, there's a lot of kind of amping up time and figuring out, you know, kind of how to represent us, but even be willing to talk to you, if you even were willing to try for a year, I think it would be.
Typically, when I join a board, I just stay on until they kick me off.
Okay,
So-
cool. Okay. Well, I love it. I mean, I think, you know, that's.
Start thinking about that.
Still next meeting.
Right.
And I would say if anybody's interested and wants to, we want to rotate around for a little bit while we're figuring this out, and if someone wants to come to a meeting as the dash like designate, I mean, nobody's gonna have an issue with that, so. Even if you want to come for a couple meetings and see if it's the right fit, that's
Do they
fine
meet
with us
over the
as
summer,
the,
or
is what,
do they meet over the summer, or will they be in recess?
No. they will not, they are. No, not in July or August.
But Hillary, would they need a designated person to be able to vote?
I would have to see if the dash does it, I mean, if it's somebody from the dashboard that we're designating temporarily without putting on the
Okay.
board,
Okay.
I would have to look at that, but. To learn if you want to do it, I don't,
Yeah.
maybe you don't get to vote, but.
Well, and
It-
so. Oh,
I was just
pardon.
gonna say, if we put someone up onto the commission, it still has to go in front of council to approve it, right? Even when it's a designated.
I don't
It doesn't
think
work
that
with
it does when it's a designee. I don't believe it has to
Yeah,
go to council.
because you've already been approved, well,
Yeah.
although it is sort of a different approval process.
Right, good.
Right, the commission does not. Council doesn't approve the boards and commissions the way they do the dashboard at like one time of year to kind of reappoint like we do with, as the stockholders.
Yeah, I just didn't know if it showed up as an uncontested, excuse me, an uncontested appointment. That's how like the chamber designees would show up for like a board or commission.
Yeah, I'd have to refresh on that.
So my point is that there's a possibility that it's a council action each time. We switch
You
someone
can't
out unless
vote
they're
until-
observed.
Right, so if somebody wants to go and learn and not vote.
Yeah.
Feel free. Happy to have you, yes, test the water.
Right, so Reach, if you're interested in trying it out, I think it sounds like it would be a great opportunity, either. June 20th may be too soon, although there's gonna be a lot of good information on buses, but if you want to do the September meeting, you know, as just a trial, that would be great. I think we should still pursue the code change, just because this will come up again, at some point about expanding the pool of people. I would like to talk to Ross first about that, just to make sure thinks that's, I don't see why he would be concerned about, it. I didn't want him to be surprised by it, that we're gonna sort of broaden this pool, but.
Or if it's dash or dash designee, right, like, so maybe it doesn't necessarily have to be somebody on the deck, if we open it up to dash being able to select somebody else from the community.
Okay, but not like
I'm
that, it
sorry,
would
the
be a staff
dashboard.
member, it would be,
The ATC board, right?
Okay.
Do they not meet in July either?
All right, that sounds good. So, Rich, you can connect with Hillary about that, and I hope you will give it a try and see if it's something. Like, I know, our folks who have served have really gotten a lot out of that, experience, and, you know, bring a lot of our perspective to that group, and then also vice versa, you know, in terms of just being involved in every aspect of transportation,
Mhm.
planning and policy.
Jack actually does have a member on the right now, I believe.
That's a DAC seat, or is that
It's
just?
not a deck seat,
Oh.
it's a citizen seat, but he is on the deck and
Oh,
on
okay.
Jim Maslaka.
Oh, okay. Any other, this is great, usually we don't get a lot of board and commission updates, so I appreciate, any others from the group? All right.
I mean,
Oh,
we're not
Jason.
meeting next month, so like, happy birthday to the city of Alexandria.
Yeah.
See the fireworks, you guys take the dash.
Yeah.
Mhm. To the waterfront.
Get a cupcake.
Get a cupcake, you know,
Symphony, right?
275, like cannons. Get excited, people.
We don't look a day over 250.
I know, right?
Thank you. It's important.
No excitement.
Hey.
It's his birthday.
We'll turn it over to Josh.
Okay, thank you. A number of items to cover this evening.
so I'll try to be brief on them. The first mention I will make is also worth celebrating. We recorded our highest month again in our history ever existing in April, 488,000 plus rides in a single month. So that's really great news. May numbers are probably right on the heels of it, and I would imagine that based on.
Your slide says May, so is that a typo, or do you have the May numbers now?
Oh, that's a typo.
Oh, okay.
Sorry. Yeah, I don't have the main numbers yet.
Okay.
Thank you. I was doing this while I was trying to figure out how to get out of Florida in the storms. But yes, I would imagine if you notice the trends, May is a high ridership month for us. So fingers crossed that we will be celebrating again this summer, another record-breaking year. And that was one of the subject matters that I was speaking about at CTA conference. So a lot of interest. In fact, it was a packed room. People were outside in the hallway trying to listen to the panel that I was on. So really exciting stuff.
Just what was the panel was, how to get your ridership to record levels?
It was, I was talking about ridership recovery,
Okay.
right? Martin was talking about collecting data in a fare-free operating environment. And Ray was talking about
Running grants.
writing grants.
Cool. That's awesome.
So, yeah, so we had a couple of panels where we had representation, but yeah, there was just a lot of discussion at the conference. This is a national topic.
Okay.
You know, getting people back on the bus
Yeah.
and the success stories around, so
Josh,
really good stuff.
Go ahead, Art.
I was just, do you know what our cumulative count is for the year?
I know that our projected graph, by the way, Martin's not here because he was on the same plane as me. And our flight got canceled and I booked it to the train and got to Orlando and flew out of Orlando and he was too far behind me, so. I don't know where he is. We stuck him. As far as I know, he's stuck in that flight. Who knows?
No,
I left him. I said, I'm gone, bye.
no man left behind.
Josh,
I'm on the line. I'm on the line if you need me.
Well, I'm glad, I don't know where you are, Martin, but hopefully you made it somewhere.
Where are you, Martin?
I am back in the Commonwealth, so good news there.
It was on, yeah, no, train behind me. Because he was asking me about how to get getting from the train to the plane was interesting transfer. Anyway, so yes, we've been showing projections of 5 million plus. And I think we're right, Martin, we feel pretty good. We're not gonna.
That's right. We've already passed 4.5, so it's just a matter of how much over 5 will be.
So great stuff there. We'll keep you all updated throughout the summer. If there's an opportunity to celebrate, we'll do it. The next item here is an action item for you. I mentioned at the last board meeting, we were trying to sort out a new contract with Transdev, First Transit. They still operate under that name as well. And I contacted the committee asking for them to consider an extension. I just felt like our timeline was too crunched. I wanted ample time for enough reviews before we brought a new contract to you to consider. So the proposed timeline that I'm putting out there is that you consider the contract extension, which is a very, very simple language in your packet, and just basically carries the current agreement through the end of September. That allows us the time this summer to get this sorted out, bring you a new contract, the September 11th meeting, and the effective date of that October 1.
Will that push back the term of the new contract?
I would look at prorating it the first year, because I want to keep it aligned with July 1, because we try to keep any contract like that aligned with our
Okay,
fiscal year.
and then the second, I forgot, what is it, a 2-year or 3-year?
It's a 3-year with 2 1-year extensions absent of action by either party.
And they negotiate collective bargaining on our behalf, right?
No,
They don't?
no.
Okay.
As a part of the new services agreement, they are one of the options for us to choose from in the collective bargaining process. They are a co-signer of the CBA as the owner of the subcorporation. But outside of that, I entirely oversee that.
Well, and the
process.
reason why I ask is I would hate for the term that we have with them to expire during negotiations, and then we're sort of beholden to
Yeah.
the upper extent.
So it is a à la carte component of the contract, so I think that we would look at that in the context of if we brought them on to handle whatever negotiation we're doing that time, we'd look at that time frame. Our next CBA is due in 2 years, so the 3-year contract would have a coverage. And they're usually,
Yeah.
as you know, they're usually about a 3-year term.
Yeah.
On CBAs.
Okay.
Yeah. So, yeah, please.
The amendment that was in the packet didn't say anything about compensation. I think, does that just continue?
It maintains the same term. The current contract, I don't have the current contract language in here, but it explains what the compensation is year over year, what that percentage change, and it just maintains this situation.
Okay. And, you referenced difficulties, what were the difficulties?
It started with me. Just having the time to sit down and get through their proposed contract and then get it to council and get it to you, all the respective parties, you being one of them who asked to take a look at it before we brought it back. And
Okay.
it just wasn't practical to make that happen in such a crunch time.
Yeah. I'm asked that to find out if there was like an external issue with them, with the
No, actually,
substance of the negotiation.
they got it back to us in the timeline I gave them.
Okay,
But sitting back and looking at it, I wasn't comfortable forcing it through in such a abbreviated timeframe.
okay. Yeah.
And for what it's worth, the budget accounts for the current contract rates. So it has no effect on. It wouldn't have a detrimental effect for the first 2 months of our new budget.
Okay, and last month when we had the more detailed proposal, one of the questions I had was around the basically the team that they were bringing on innovation didn't seem to have battery electric bus experience, even though that was one of the topics under the innovation scope.
Yeah, I did follow up on that question. I asked them at that, what they explained was that those were parties that it exists in their organization right now, that they included as a part of the proposal, but they clarified to me that anyone in their entire organization specific to the work being provided would be presented for that work for us to review and consider in that particular situation. So conceivably, there's someone else who is more specific to battery electric bus, for example, that they would bring forth when we went to them and said, this is what we're working on.
Okay,
I
but they
think
didn't
what-
choose to name that person in the proposal, or like, or that
Well-
person isn't there yet?
I think their issue was that our proposal was too vague about what the type of work was that we would be doing.
Okay,
And I think it's fair that we made it vague and fair that they made that comment because it could very much be unique. For example, we're getting ready to endeavor on route charging. Well, the next time we might do something related to a facility component that is unrelated.
Right.
And so, their message to me was it's not a rubber stamp.
Yeah.
One individual.
Okay.
If that makes sense, which gave me some reassurance that there would be a process of discussing that. There's just simply agreeing to what rate we're gonna pay.
Yeah.
And then we get to figure out who the individual is and whether their qualifications suit the work that we're trying to have them do.
okay, but are they representing that expertise is present and
Yes.
available to us?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And also, we have the right to not use them.
Yeah.
For example, and we could use a consultant or some other firm. if we needed.
Thanks.
So this will require action for us to vote. on.
Yes, this is your first action item under my discussion.
Contract, so is there a motion to approve the extension of the existing contract? Move Kirsten, is there a second? From Jesse, is there any further discussion? Not all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, any abstentions?
Thank you very much. The next item that you're gonna act on is the FY 25 budget. As mentioned at the beginning of the meeting, we have advertised for feedback on that. Nothing has changed from the last time that we met and discussed. The budget was revised to reflect the final outcomes of the city's process, including the addition back of line 104 funding, which was the most contentious issue in our submittal. Everything else has been balanced according to actual costs that have come in since the original draft was submitted to the city back in the fall, and remains a balanced budget as presented. So that is all in your packet, and there have been no changes from the last month, so I would toss it back to you for a consideration of approval.
Any discussion on the budget as proposed? Is there a motion to approve the budget for FY 25? Moved by Matt, is there a second? Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, any abstentions?
Abstain.
Abstentions?
Okay. I do not have a financial report for you. It is included in your packet. We are continuing to project a balanced year end. And I want to again thank our team led by Edward in helping to really deal with the year end details and making sure that we continue to be where we should be. We have also been looking to make sure that if there is something that was withheld that can be accomplished at the end of this year, that we're doing that, but we're still projecting a very minor year-end surplus at this point, in the range of a couple $1,000s, but about close to zero as we can get. Another piece of good news is we were finally able to sit down with ATU to talk about the maintenance contract. And in my career, I've never negotiated a contract in 6 hours, but we did. It is contingent upon a follow-up meeting tomorrow, which we will have with them in reviewing any last-minute concerns that either party might have, and then advertising the contract to the membership. There is no effect to our budget or our bottom line in this contract. And it'd be implemented effective July 1. The plan is that then that will be aligned with the expiration of the bus operators contract. So this is going to be a 2-year addendum to the bus operators contract. For those who weren't here previously, the maintenance department voted to join the existing unit. So they will collectively bargain as one unit with the bus operators and be under one contract. This process was just simply to address specifics to maintenance that are outside of the purview of the bus operators contract. Part of the reason it went so smoothly and so quickly was much of their request was to apply the same to maintenance that was applied to bus operators, and we had really already done that. So there really wasn't a change, and we had proactively done that. So the miscellaneous items that were specific to maintenance, we worked out pretty quickly. I would imagine there will be more robust conversations a couple of years from now when we're doing the larger contract. So just a little update there for you. And then the last item I have here, I'm actually going to ask Ray to speak a little bit about, but just to remind you that in August, the SUN Small Urban Network Conference, I'm going to let Ray talk about that conference for you because there was a couple of questions that came up when I announced it previously. But this is a subset of CTAA, which is the conference that we were just at. But what I have found in my career is that we have APTA, the American Public Transit Association, and we have CTA, the Community Transportation Association of America. APTA has historically been big bus, like huge systems, and CTA has historically been very small systems. There's been a gray in between that each of them have done a good or a not so good job of addressing. CTAA has sort of stepped up, and that's where they've created SUN. We are not members of APTA anymore. I pulled our membership a number of years ago, very much for the reason I very much believe in APTA, but I didn't feel like what we were paying for was representing the size of our system and what our needs were, whereas CTAA has been more effective at doing that. So the exciting thing is that SUN brings them here, and in the SUN network, we're the largest entity in that. So Ray, if you want to just mention the details of the dates and what's gonna happen on that
Yes, I think
for the board?
okay, I'll speak from here. So yeah, we're hosting the, I think it's the 7th or 8th annual Sun Conference, here in Alexandria. The date's gonna be August 14th, 15th, and, 16th. It's really a day and a half, event, one full day full of, sessions and, presentation sessions, activities, and then the surrounding days of travel and travel out days. When it was first announced that we were hosting Sun, we were at the previous Sun conference last year, and I ran into one of our colleagues, the former general manager of Missoula, Montana, who had hosted Sun in a past year, and I asked him, what do we sign up for? But he said, rest assured, it's a very hands-on process, and the CTAA staff does a wonderful job arranging and setting up everything. So far, he's been right. So we've been involved with the CTAA event planning staff. They've been in tune with myself and Camilla and on setting up the program, setting up the event, setting up the activities. And as of now, what we are going to be participating in as far as Dash, we'll be hosting a opening day welcome session and presentation at the Dash facility. We're going to provide the transportation from the host hotel, which is right here at Alexandria across the street, transporting the attendees over to our facility. We'll be hosting a very really small but intimate panel of leadership members to kind of present who we are, what we do, the things we do great, and our challenges, as well as a tour of our facility. And we've arranged for them to have there's an expo, it's a really small expo of vendors and products and services that's attached to this conference, and we'll be hosting an expo in our facility as well as an opening night reception. That'll be the night for everyone to see the Dash facility, to meet the Dash leadership, and learn about what Dash does. The second day, Wednesday, is entirely sessions. It's entirely hosted here in the Alexandria Hotel. The session program cannot be finalized or released by the magnitude. It's going to start with an open session, remarks from host members here or key individuals, and there's a session going on. The second night, they are planning an evening ghost tour here in Alexandria, and then the first night they're hosting an evening ghost tour after the reception at our facility, and the second night they are hosting a evening cruise on the cherry blossom down at the Smoke River. So that's pretty much a rundown of what we can expect. Josh, or any questions?
It's about 50 to 75 attendees.
Correct. It's a very small conference. Last year it was about 60 or 70 attendees. They are anticipating a bit more of attendee growth this year. So, I guess probably somewhere in the neighborhood of 100 and 120 attendees. But it's a very specific segment of the CTAA membership, and so every time we attend, we realize it's a very specific group of agencies and representatives agencies.
And have you guys put the CCTA staff in touch with Visit Alexandria? Are they looped in on all this?
So they're doing all those on the back end. So they're the ones arranging with local farmers organizations and arranging all the social events and connections with the hospitality.
I know you said that it's a subset of CTA. I'm just curious, like, how many bus systems are represented in CTA, and about how many would you expect to participate in the conference?
Just based on our personal observation from past conferences, it's probably a good 2 to 3 dozen transit systems that are represented in the some conference.
As a portion of CCTA, but as a portion of CCTA's membership, that's 20% of the membership, it's 10% of the membership?
Yeah, probably 20%. I mean, if you think about all of the rural and small systems throughout the country, in every state, for every one big system, there's probably 20 or 30 small ones. So they have a wide net of members, but again, kind of as mentioned earlier, and also as the example of Lonell about them picking up that segment of the heavy duty bus, but the smaller heavy duty bus that APTA dropped is sort of the other evolution of this. And I've worked with their executive director for many years, and it's been something I've really been pushing him on, and he's agreed that there's a segment that is sort of our size that is underrepresented in these national associations. And so I think they're trying to figure out how to fill that and gradually bring them in. We are currently their largest member. in the entire association, we are currently the largest member. In APTA, we would probably be one of the smallest ones. So it's kind of in between. But yeah, and Ray, could you tell us if board members wanted to attend the reception at Dash, is that something that you interpret would be?
Absolutely, I think it would be a great opportunity for board members and members of city leadership to attend the opening reception at Nash. Would be, it would be a great opportunity to demonstrate the support of our community, the support of our board.
So if you are interested and have questions about those details, please reach out to Beth and we'll make sure we get you all of the specifics when they come. And for those who weren't here, it was similar to how we did the 35-year, I believe it was a 35-year celebration, where we sort of section off a portion of the garage with buses and we create kind of a event space, and we detour all of the bus traffic around the building to create a kind of a fun environment for that. So I'm excited that they were interested in doing that. So
Could I please just ask for the opposite? If it's okay, could we just send all that information to the board rather than us?
Oh, sure. Yeah, sure. Okay, Ray, you want to stay up here and the last item that I had here was included in your packet on page 18, memorandum from Ray regarding an application to EPA for a clean heavy duty vehicles grant. So Ray, if you please summarize that.
Person is recusing as well. We want to make sure we have those both noted. in the minutes.
I'm sorry, yeah, I'll pause for you to,
Okay.
yeah, sorry. That's right.
Acting Chair Matt Harris.
Okay. All right.
We don't have to vote?
Oh, boy.
They have to leave.
Good evening, Mr. Acting Chair, members of the board. The next item on the agenda is a resolution to support a grant application to help convert the next set of replacement buses that's due for Dash. Mostly to battery electric, and that is limited by the amount of local subsidy we have. So as a result of the administration's Inflation Reduction Act, there is a program that is administered through the EPA that helps convert commercial heavy duty vehicles from conventional to battery electric. We found this program as one that could possibly help us fill in a gap and help us convert an additional number of would-be replacement buses that are due for us to replace in the year FY 26 for state of good repair from conventional to battery electric. This program would be funding available in FY 25 federal fiscal year, but it doesn't apply. The performance period of the program thus stretch to cover our FY 26 replacement buses. In FY 26, we are due for 7 replacement buses. Aside from this program, we probably wouldn't have enough funding to procure 2 of those 7 as battery electric. If we are successful in being awarded this program, that number would change from 2 to up to 6. So that is for the board for consideration. This program is a little bit different than what we've traditionally known as low-no bus facilities. It functions and is structured more similar to the Volkswagen Mitigation Fund program that we applied for and we were successful in getting a couple of years ago. It essentially the fund covers the majority of the cost of converting a would-be new conventional bus to a battery electric bus or any type of zero emissions vehicle. The funding we're applying for is for the amount of up to $1.59 million, and if successful and awarded, we will convert up to 6 of our 7 buses to number 6.
Yeah, just gonna ask, are there any differences in this EPA grant and the low-no around the purchase restrictions? Any more flexibility in this one than in the low-no?
It is, we have yet to learn, although this program is administered through the EPA, once awarded, it may or may not be administered through FTA. We've seen some grants that flex apply for in one department, but then administered through different departments. So that I think that will ultimately be determined by where this grant for applicants such as us will be administered.
doing the math, the 1.59 million for 6 buses. Comes out to about 265,000 per bus.
Right.
Premium, that's in the purchase price of electric versus diesel.
Right.
Does that mean that? For all 7 of those to be electric, that's the amount of local fund, like what's the amount of local funding that you would need to do all 7 as electric? It's not the whole amount, right?
Yeah, it's not the whole amount, it covers a fraction of the premium cost of 265. It's it makes a dent, but it doesn't cover the whole thing. If we were to do 7, we're short about. Just rough math, we're trying another additional, $600,000 or $700,000. And the math isn't entirely clean because the local match we have isn't exactly a 1-for-1 fit for the bus. So just taking the total local money that's available in FY 26 funds more than 7 buses do, actually funds 9 or some odd number. So part of the buses have been would be battery electric buses already locally funded. So the math comes out to 6 would be best case scenario, just assuming the amount of local fund that exists today.
Right, sorry, Bruno, continue.
You were saying that the price difference is greater than 265, so like what's the price difference between? Purchase price difference between the two?
Actual price difference in today's market is you're in a territory of $600,000 to $700,000 per bus.
Sorry, 600,000-700,000 is the premium for electric over.
Over diesel, yeah.
The up to 1.59 million, that is a cap within the program, that's a cap based on our eligibility.
That is a cap within the program.
Okay.
So within the program, you can apply, as long as you apply for at least 3 vehicles. There's no limit of how many vehicles you apply for, but for each vehicle, the funding credit is capped at 265,000 per vehicle.
Okay.
Any other questions or discussion?
Is this the first round of this grant? Have other transit agencies applied for FTA grant and won, and then they applied for this EPA grant and won? Like, what's the likelihood of us being successful in this application?
Actually, do not know. So just a little bit of background of this grant. We do know that this year's iteration of this grant, it was not the first time. The majority of this grant is actually school bus focused. It's a school bus focused grant with a small carve out for other vocational vehicles, non-school buses. We're chasing after that small carve out.
Okay.
We heard a lot of discussion about like trash trucks, stuff like that. Sort of non-bus vehicles too, right? Or something that's.
I'm just curious, did we look at whether the grant is written specific to vehicle type or rather vehicle use, which is to say, because we are transporting a high number of students these days, could we potentially be considered school buses?
The answer is no.
Okay.
Yeah.
Run for school board.
So,
Yes.
Ray, what's the timeline on when we know if we got this grant, you know?
I had it and I lost it. So the grant application is due on July 25th, and I believe the awards are announced sometime late September.
I don't have a fully baked question here, so I apologize. I'm trying to think through the nexus of this low-no, what we talked about a few months ago about keeping our electric network, like some of your stipulations for keeping our electric network reliable in the current marketplace of US manufactured, like how that all comes together. Maybe what I'm asking for is an update in the fall about how all that's going, because it seemed like there are things there's friction between pieces of those things I just outlined. I'm just curious how it all works out, you know.
Yeah, we can provide, we'll definitely need to do a bit more research, but we can provide, it's a parallel discussion.
Yeah.
Provide a bit of update, industry update on where exactly the compensation is going. This grant does actually follow very similar biomedical requirements as the FTA administered grant, so this in itself contributes to that on balance.
Right, yeah, just, maybe it's around the same timeline that we got that memo update, just kind of an update on how all that's working together. Would be at least interesting to me, but I think useful for the boards. Pushing for electric.
Ray, what's our FY 27 forecast for how many buses we'll need to buy the subsequent year?
In FY 27, we are due for 14 buses, and of those, and also just to note, FY 27 is our policy mandate to purchase all of our replacement buses as zero emissions.
Okay.
Whether or not it's fully funded, I think it's been called for in the CIP, but a good chunk of it is unsecured at present.
Okay.
We have a lull year. I think it's this coming year, 25 is a no bus year.
Correct. 25 is a little-
And we kind
Okay.
of do a lot of
Yeah,
this
yeah.
in the cycle.
Have we looked at the EPA's greenhouse gas reduction fund as another public funding source?
We have not. So we can take a look at that. It's, yeah, we need to, yeah, we need to take a look at that, see if that's something we can pursue. We also try to, of all the opportunities that are available, we try to strategize with them so we're not oversubscribed to one.
Yeah.
Or rely on back-to-back successes on one, over the course of our program.
You got Amy, you're Amy, right? Yeah.
Oh, Amy, problem?
Yeah, yeah. So a lot of this, Praveen, has been, a lot of this discussion has been with Amy.
She's got our EV planner.
The EV planner,
Okay.
trying to think, and I'm thinking she might have thought about that. It doesn't ring a bell to me, but that would be,
Is she in OCA Alliance?
Yes.
Okay.
She is.
Yeah.
And we also work with a firm that knows all the grants. So when we see these coming across, we reach out to them and ask them if
Okay.
it's. a
she actually
fit for
helped us to kind of catch this, because
Okay.
this popped up.
Yeah.
It's like, oh,
Who's who's that from?
Oh, TFG.
Okay.
The Ferguson Group. We have a question. Okay, so I'm just doing some math here, and I know we talked about this, but, if did you say 7 buses are due in 26?
Yes.
But we're only applying for the match for 6 because we're a little short, right? But if we applied for the match for 7, like, should the board say up to whatever the 265 times 7 is? So that we can look around, because like if there's, it looks like a smaller gap if you did the 7, right? So that would, I don't know how it works, but with applying for more than we have listed in our CIP, but we're pretty close to like 200,000. So I'm just wondering, like, if it's only a $200,000 difference to get an extra electric bus, that feels like something
Yeah.
that we might be able to
Yeah, I don't think that would.
figure out it. So I'm just maybe the authority to, at least while we look at this.
Yeah.
Increase that number that the board is saying that Dash can apply for.
Yeah, I think that's,
I'd have to say that one.
yeah, I think that would be, that wouldn't hurt. If any of our money. Yeah, that wouldn't hurt if we wanted to restructure the resolution to, or make.
I mean, up to, right?
Up to, correct.
Yeah.
I know these are due soon, because it's a little more time.
Any other discussion? Seeing none, I just have a grammatical issue with the resolution that I can address with either you, Beth, or you, Josh. With the amendment to the resolution as presented by Hillary, is there a motion to support the resolution that's drafted with that revision?
So moved.
Moved by Jesse, is there a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Rish. Any further discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor of the motions, signify by saying aye.
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 Any noes? Okay, and the abstentions are noted. Yeah. Or,
it's also an extension. In addition
okay,
to
motion passes. Thank you.
2 recusals, 1 extension.
2 recusals, 1
Yeah.
abstention. Part is the extension.
And who's gonna revise the resolution?
I would imagine Beth and Ray can.
Yeah,
coordinate
we can provide the revision, if Matt, you can provide.
Yeah, I'll email that.
Sure.
All right, let
And
me
then
get-
we'll just need to track you down to get you to sign it.
Yeah.
Okay. So, okay.
All right.
Stop spending it. I'm trying to keep you guys out of the doghouse. Swear.
Welcome back, Mr. Chair. I have finished my report and discussion items.
All right, do I need to announce the next meeting, or do you want me to do it when we reconvene public session?
We'll pause the Zoom and come back in, but you can.
Okay,
announce
well,
it.
we'll announce now, so folks don't hang around. Next meeting is September 11th of 2024. We're gonna be at the Dash facility for that meeting. So, second Wednesday, so that's when our meeting falls. So you can mark your calendars for that. We have an executive session tonight, so there's a language for a motion to enter the executive session on top. And before folks scurry away, there's still 3 left, and I've got a few more in here, so feel free to grab.
I want to say thank you. It's very good. I don't remember what I ate earlier today, so.
Okay.
Coming in on all those planes and everything. It was
Yeah.
nice to have a sweet to get me through the meeting.
I'm glad. So if the language is up on top, if somebody wants to read them, read the.
I, Jesse O'Connell, move that the Alexandria Transit Company Board of Directors convene an executive session for the purpose of discussing personnel matters pursuant to section 2.2-3711 subsection A.1 of the Code of Virginia.
That has been moved by Jesse. Is there a second?
Second.
Thanks. Kirsten, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All right, we're gonna enter exec session. Staff will reset.
Jesse was the motion there. Thank
The,
Still gotta read it. Or somebody.
Is there a motion to then adopt the motion that was agreed to in executive session?
Oh, did we?
There it is.
Yeah,
There it is. There we go. I, Jesse O'Connell, move to reconvene the public meeting of the Alexandria Transit Company Board of Directors.
Moved by Jesse. Is there a second? Second. All right, all in favor? Aye.
I, Jesse O'Connell, move to certify that pursuant to section 2.2-3711 of the Code of Virginia, to the best of each member's knowledge, only public business matters that were identified in the motion by which the executive session was convened and that are lawfully exempted by the Freedom of Information Act from the Act's open meeting requirements were heard, discussed, or considered by the board during the executive session.
Second. Jesse, second Matt, all in favor?
Aye.
Oh, it's Kendall, we got her on the phone. So we have a motion in the executive session of action that we took, so I think we would just certify the motion that was discussed in executive session and pass that. I think that's how we did this last year. Was that? Yeah,
Right.
okay, yeah.
right, I think
Got it. Oh. That's got it.
that's, I think, is it still written?
To certify what was discussed.
We certified the session, but we had a motion that was discussed in the executive session that we need to ratify in the public
Oh,
session.
yeah, motion was offered by and seconded to approve the recommendations and decisions discussed.
Okay,
during the
that's
executive
it.
session.
That's what we gotta do. Okay, so we have to make that motion.
Somebody has to read it. You need somebody says to read that.
Or
Oh,
should you-
yes, somebody.
Read
needs
the
to read
back.
that.
Closest to you. Anna.
He needs to read that. You need to make that motion.
The bottom one.
Not that one, is it?
Yeah,
Oh, a motion, wait, this is. Is that the right one? I'm sorry.
yeah, that was just from the minutes from last year's meeting.
Oh, got it. Okay, so I'm saying Irish Gudger, motion to approve the recommendations and decisions discussed during the executive session.
All right, it's been moved. Is there a second?
Second.
by several people. I couldn't say, but, we'll give it to Art. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, and then I think it's just to adjourn. I've already announced the meeting. Moved by Jesse, second Matt, all in favor?
Aye.
Have a great summer, everybody.
Thanks, y'all.
Anybody wants some bars on the road? I have a few left, so.
I took mine already.
Why, I ate plenty before, I have some of my